Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about a book that I enjoyed as a child, The Scarlet Pimpernel by Baroness Orczy. The Scarlet Pimpernel is a very, very old story. It actually was first published back in 1905, but it was based on a play that was running even earlier than that. Baroness Orczy had written the play and had produced it with her husband, and basically she wrote a book following it. Everybody loved it, and she went on to write a whole bunch of other books. So there's a whole series of books about the Scarlet Pimpernel and his friends and basically characters within that universe. Now, the Scarlet Pimpernel is probably not super famous anymore. It's very old styled. It's much more classical in how it handles the English language, and not many people probably read it these days, but I highly recommend giving it a listen at least. The Scarlet Pimpernel, in short, is the story of a hero during the French Revolution. So we got this British aristocrat and basically this mysterious British aristocrat who rescues French aristocrats from the jaws of death, from the guillotine. You can imagine in some ways that this is an early version of the trope, the hero with a secret identity. So if you like Zorro and Batman and Superman, this is kind of in that genre, but it's more based in historical fiction, and it is a novel. And of course, with the Scarlet Pimpernel being based on a play, the book is not actually very, very thick. It's pretty accessible in terms of size, so you're not going to be spending like a ton of time reading it. I probably, back in the day when I read it first, it probably took me maybe about 3 or 4 days, but nowadays, like, I could probably turn it in about 2 days. So if you're like really no-lifing this book, you can actually get it done in a fairly good time. I really love the Scarlet Pimpernel, even though on some levels it isn't really high quality if we were comparing it to like the greats of literature. But, it's a very serviceable book with a very interesting message. And it's really talking about loyalty, love, bravery, and this kind of decency, what it is to be a decent person and a caring person. I really enjoy stories like this. Batman was always my favorite kind of superhero from DC, although I did also like Flash to a certain degree. But there's something about the secret identity, dual identity thing that I love. So Daredevil's Matt Murdock, for example, was another favorite of mine, because you had this lawyer by day, but Daredevil by night. And Scarlet Pimpernel is a very fascinating creation of a man who has two identities. I think you can figure it out pretty quickly. His wife certainly did not figure it out as quickly as she perhaps ought to, but it's very fascinating. It's very, very fascinating story. So if you are really into historical fiction, if you like the French Revolution, if you want to see aristocrats saving other aristocrats, you can try out the Scarlet Pimpernel. You can actually get it for free off of Gutenberg because it is now in public domain, and you can buy very cheap editions of it on Amazon. You can buy it probably super cheap, used, and I'm sure there's an audiobook of it out there somewhere. So that's my general non-spoiler review of the Scarlet Pimpernel. Go and watch it right now. Just stop the video, leave, go and check it out. Go and, give it a listen. Stop the review right now. Go out, check it out, and maybe you'll have a really good time reading it. Now, let's get to the spoilers. Now, if you're not interested in reading this, but you're really curious as to why I enjoyed it, I want to talk first about the Scarlet Pimpernel himself. So, Scarlet Pimpernel is actually this very lazy kind of individual called Sir Percy Blakeney. And he is kind of really hot, and he's a baronet, and he presents himself as being a gambler and a playboy, and he's kind of like stupid and foppish, and he's just like, and he's like super flaky on the outside, but on the inside, he is incredibly intelligent, and he's a master of disguise. He's very imaginative. He's a strategist. He actually can use the sword really well. He's actually very good at escaping out of, tight situations. And his wife, his beautiful wife, she married him, and she's moved to England. She used to be an actress in Paris, so she married him for security and stuff, and she thought, she loved this very handsome man, but he's turning out to be a complete dimwit asshole, I guess. Not really an asshole, but you know what I mean, like just a letdown. She comes to realize that her husband is not what he seems, but it takes her forever. So she basically, in the first book, discovers the secret of her husband, that he is this infamous Scarlet Pimpernel who is rescuing people and basically is really cool and kind-hearted and really awesome. The alter ego hero with a secret identity is a trope that works for many reasons. I think it's because there's this tension of will they, won't they find out? And there is a sense of a lot could be lost if people find out. So I really, really think that books like these work well. And I think lots of people love aristocracy being cool and good. So once again, this is very much equal to, let's say, Bruce Wayne's Batman, because you have a rich man who is basically becoming a vigilante to save people. Now, you might notice I'm talking a lot about comic books. And oddly enough, I discovered that Stan Lee, who created Marvel, said, and I quote, "The Scarlet Pimpernel was the first superhero I had read about, the first character who could be called a superhero." Now, I kind of disagree with him in the sense that I actually think Beowulf is a superhero archetype, but I will agree that in terms of early modern literature coming out of the 1800s, the Scarlet Pimpernel was incredibly popular, and there's a reason, right? He is very heroic. He is a superhero with an alter ego. With Beowulf, it's more like we know who he is. We called him in. He did his job. He left. So it's kind of like Terminator, I guess, maybe. I don't know. But with the Scarlet Pimpernel, there is more of that juxtaposition of the double life, right? And the double life is what really causes issues. So, you could say that Marguerite married her husband for security, or because he's handsome, or because he's rich. But I think she also married him because he was kind. But as time goes on, she begins to realize that he's behaving kind of in this nonchalant kind of way, just joking about what's going on in her home country. And she feels like her husband is not competent. And this is a very fascinating kind of odd thing, because as she hears more and more about the Scarlet Pimpernel, she becomes more and more in love with this mysterious person who is making change happen. Now, this is really fascinating because I actually think this is very true in type to a lot of average women who aren't really concerned about the money and the looks as much as they are concerned about competency and, great-heartedness, I guess, heroism. And although money and, being handsome is important, I think a lot of women actually subconsciously are seeking someone who is competent and reliable and kind. Really, that's what they're really looking for. And anyone who is saying otherwise is lying to themselves. So you have this weird thing going on where she's falling in love more and more with this unknown Scarlet Pimpernel, not knowing she's actually falling in love with her husband all over again. And of course, when she finds out, much love, much banging in the Blakeney house, I'm sure. Now, of course, Orczy is not going to talk about stuff like that. It's very, very classy novel, not talking about stuff like that, but we all know. You know it, I know it, everyone knows it. So to me, it's a very fascinating exploration of female desire and how it's much more complicated than just wanting money or a handsome person in their life. And I think it's a really great reminder. And I think there's a reason why, if it was made again today, I think a lot of people would love it. I think a lot of people would still enjoy the Scarlet Pimpernel. I think men would enjoy it because the Scarlet Pimpernel is super, smart and cool. And I think women would enjoy it because he's super hot, and that's something that they want to fantasize over, is this hot guy who's also incredibly competent and knows what to do in a tough situation. They can probably feel one with Marguerite, falling in love with a person and then realizing that the person's disappointing them, and what do they do next? Of course, because of the times, not only because of the French Revolution times, but because of the times that Baroness Orczy lived in, the characters are not going right away into it's time for a divorce. But there's definitely a slow separation and drifting that's described, and it's very fascinating to see how this is all turned around. So if you are here to really enjoy a fascinating love story bound up inside of a superhero story, bound up inside of a historical fiction story, really, you should just give it a try. It's honestly a fun little book to read. It's just really, just very liberating to kind of reread it again and just enjoy some archetypal tropes of men and women being men and women, which is, just really great. And, Marguerite is not a fainting flower either. She's not like a fainting couch feminist or anything. She does get out there. She tries to do her thing as well, but within reason, it's not unbelievable or anything like that. It's done very well. And because it's set in the French Revolution period, there are major historical characters that do cameos throughout the series. So if you're kind of into the French Revolution, it is also just a fun romp, I guess. A fun romp through that period. So give Scarlet Pimpernel a try. Stan Lee was reading it, so maybe you should be reading it too. Let me know in the comments below if you've read the Scarlet Pimpernel, if you've heard about it. And, here's a thought. Who do you think could be the next Scarlet Pimpernel if they did a film for it? I would vote for Tom Hiddleston because he's very tall, he's got blue eyes, blonde hair, and the Scarlet Pimpernel is not super buff. But you let me know what you all think, and I'll see you all next time. Take care.